We're the Halversons from Split Rock Township, west of Moose Lake, about 14 miles. My name is Ken, my wife Carleen. We've lived in this home for the last 20 years. We bought this home from my parents, who lived here for many, many years. My father was born here in, maybe I'll back up and tell about myself. I was born here in 1943, not in this house, but in a house just across the field, a small little home that my parents lived in. I was born at home. There was no doctor. My grandma was the midwife. She stayed with my parents for a couple of weeks prior to my arrival. I was number 8 in the family. We lived in a small house over there, very small, and we had 8 children that lived in this little 2-room house. It got quite crowded. So eventually we bought this place from our neighbors in 1951. And I was 9 years old at that time. It was the first time that we had running water, and that was really nice. And we had an indoor toilet. That was really nice, especially when it was 40 below in the winter. And
electricity.
And we had electricity. Well, we had electricity over there too.
Oh, you did?
Oh yeah, that electricity came in. So this was a real blessing to come here to live. And I lived here until my high school graduation, and then I moved away, much like many people would do when they would leave. When they get to that age, you know, they know everything, and it's time for them to leave because they know a lot more than mom and dad. And so I left here and worked for many years away from this area. Taught school in a little community of Cambridge, Minnesota. Carleen, you can tell a little bit about your life now, and she comes from a large family, and so you go ahead and...
I did come from a large family. I met Ken when I was in nurses training out at the state hospital. So we met in '66 and we got married in the fall of '67. So then we lived in Cambridge for 30 years. I was an RN in surgery and he taught school, and when he retired in 2000 and this place came up for sale, we bought it. We were very anxious to move north. It's a very well kept secret. But I think the popularity is getting out because people are moving up now.
Mm-hmm. You bet. And when my grandfather Hans Halverson didn't immigrate, he moved up here in 1903, and he built a home right over here where I was born. My father was born in that same home as I was. Kind of an interesting thing out here in Split Rock. My grandfather and grandmother were Norwegians, and all the people that lived east of us, starting right here east in this town, in this Split Rock Township, were all Polish. You had the Sahaskis, the Karulaks, the Walczynskis, the Pivons, and so on. And then when you'd go travel west on Highway 27, the first people here were all Finns. The Ahonins, the Timonins, the Mackies. So it was kind of unusual for a Norwegian to live just he must have been the peacemaker between the two ethnic groups when they got in arguments, perhaps, I'm not sure. But so my dad and mom lived here, and then my dad passed away, of course, in 1997. So he lived all of his life here, born here, and he passed away. He was well known for his being a woodsman, a trapper, and I could tell the stories about there were families who were in dire need of food sometimes here when the times were tough, and sometimes one would need some vegetables or especially meat on the table, and they didn't have any beef cattle, so the only thing that one could find here would be some of the wild game, like a white-tailed deer. And I remember as a young person that sometimes these people might come in late in the evening in October, maybe November even, and ask Carl, my dad, do you think we could go out and find a deer? My folks, I'm really short on food at home. Most people had 7 to 8 kids, just like we did. So there was a lot of venison consumed in this area during that time, even though it probably wasn't a season or wasn't legal. So that was quite a common thing. My dad was very helpful to the community that way because he was a very good marksman when it comes to shooting, and he was very good at dressing deer, and he was a very well-known trapper in this area. So anyway, that's kind of a summary of our lives as in our families a little bit. Carleen's parents lived in southern Minnesota, so she was not too acclimated to this area. However, she loves it here now after many years being here all the time. She says that quite often.
And I do. I really do. It's peaceful, it's beautiful, and we love it.
This home, when we bought it, was still needed a lot of work. It was an old farmhouse that my folks didn't improve too much. So when we bought it, we ended up starting right from the roof, put a new roof on. We did all new plumbing, new electricity.
Insulating.
And there wasn't very much, the electrical part of this house was very poor. So, and sheetrock, and we've added this porch we're sitting in, and we added a porch on the north side, and we made it a little more modern. So, with that being said, we could take a little tour outside, maybe just show you some of the things perhaps of interest, where the old barn was at one time. So should we go out that way and see what's going on? Follow us out this, we'll go out right out this way. Look here. When we moved here, we built this garage. There was no garage. And this garden was my dad, and my dad liked to garden. So we kind of continued that. You bet. Not a big one anymore. As we get older, it's getting smaller. Yeah. Carleen likes to make salsa, spaghetti sauce. So I have a lot of tomatoes and onions. And a few string beans and 3 hills of kooks and a lot of raspberries, which have been really productive this year. We started raising our raspberries from somebody who lives down the road, an old Polish lady who's passed away. Her name was Gertie Muniak. Some of you listeners and viewers might know of that name. What a great lady. And she gave me about a dozen of those raspberries, and now look at them after about 10 years. And they are good. Thank you, Gertie. Going around here then, looking at this building here, we replaced the old barn with this full building. An old dairy barn. We had a few cows when I lived here, about 12 of them to milk. And, you know, then we had turkeys, thousands of those here, and we raised those. And I felt that I didn't want to milk cows 7 days a week, nor did I want to raise turkeys 7 days a week. So that's when I left home. When I turned 18, I just didn't want to do this. My dad did ask me to stay one summer to help him farm at the first year before I went off to school. So I did, but after that fall he sold the cows. He never liked to milk cows very much, so I and my brothers milked them quite a bit. All right, and I do have a song that I like to sing about the fact that when you get 18 years old and how most of us want to leave home. So there's a kind of a good song. It has some really good words to it. So I hope you listeners listen to the words, because you'll probably be able to identify your feelings when you listen to this song. It's to be 17, 18 years old. They kind of think that they know a lot. And they tell their parents probably they think their parents aren't very smart anymore, and it's maybe time for them. They feel, I think I can do better if I leave here. Here's a song about a young fellow who lived on a farm, told his dad that he had time for him to go, and I hope you enjoy the, listen to the lyrics. I think they're kind of good. As we sat on the front porch of that old gray house where I was born and raised, staring at the dusty field where my daddy worked hard every day, I think it kind of hurt him when I said, Daddy, there's a lot I don't know. But don't you ever dream about a life where corn don't grow. He just sat there crying, staring at his favorite coffee cup. I saw a storm of mixed emotions in his eyes when he looked up. He said, son, at your age, I know it seems like this whole world is turning slow, and you think you'll find the answer to it all where corn won't grow. Where corn don't grow. That's one of my favorite songs.
And Eileen Halverson, 1990, Mom, Pa Kettle. Here's at the Halverson farm, the wall of names. All the kids sign it. All over.
Yeah, we've had them sign up here.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. We kind of left this part the way it was.
When we bought the house, the one thing everybody asked us in the Halverson family, are you going to paint the stairwell?
That's so cool.
Yeah.
History out here in Split Rock Township.
Yeah. And this rug you're walking on, my mother made that in a loom, and it's still here.
Wow.
Yeah.